This is the Transforming Anxiety podcast with mindfulness teacher Kelly Hanlon McCormick. And today is episode number 277, Hope versus Hopelessness. My intention for this conversation is that we talk about hope and that we let ourselves hope, but also that we don't grip on too tightly to hope as the end-all be-all for how to move forward. Welcome in. It's the Transforming Anxiety podcast, episode number 277, Hope versus Hopelessness. I'm so glad you're here. Hey there. Welcome in today. So, on the tail of a hell of a week here in the United States, which included this trifecta. It started with Halloween. It delivered us into the cold and darkness of winter with daylight savings time, which is such an awful thing to do twice a year. And then, of course, a truly historical election that ended, well, you know how it went, right? Plus life being lifey, and I just kind of went into a black hole. It wasn't awful. I'm A-okay. Just, I have to be honest, my nervous system needed a break. I think I've been flirting with some level of burnout for a while, like way longer than I want to admit, and I just unplugged for a bit. I did a ton of yoga. I've read a lot. I have walked many, many, many miles. I have tried to rest and to sleep more. I've tried to get clear on what's been working for me and what hasn't been. The things that are feeling good and that are flowing and clicking, and where I'm fighting and resisting and avoiding and struggling. And I don't know, sometimes I find I have to just burn it all down and sit in the ashes a bit to see what's what. Take stock, breathe, feel my way back. But I can tell you something. I have missed you. I've taken a couple breaks from the podcast at this point over the past, how many years have we been doing this? 5? Something like that. And I miss you when I'm away. That is one of the things that I keep coming back to. This work, this podcast, this community, these teachings, this pursuit, it is one of the most important, beloved, and vital parts of my life. So, although I do it imperfectly, and apparently I sometimes do it somewhat sporadically, I'm back. I took an unplanned break. Sometimes those breaks are the most restorative. You know, like you'll plan a vacation or a quiet day or a, mental health break or something. And you find that it's just not all that grounding or restful because it's like forced fun, right? Forced rest. It's okay. It can be enjoyable. But sometimes what you need is for your nervous system to pull the plug and to tell you now. Like where you almost don't have a choice. And that's what happened. So, like always, I'm back because I'm not going anywhere long term. No, I love all of this and you and this work way too much to be gone for too long, ever. And in light of all of that, I thought it might be helpful to talk about hope today and also hopelessness because I have some thoughts and I've come across some other people's thoughts about hope and hopelessness, I guess not specifically, but you'll see how this unfolds. But a lot of these thoughts I have found helpful and meaningful. And I offer this to you today too in the hope that you too perhaps find it supportive and helpful and maybe even somewhat meaningful. So I want to start by confessing to you that I'm not someone who identifies as overly hopeful. Like I'm not at all an optimist. I think I have a lot of optimistic qualities in my personality, but I think that's only because I'm rooted in idealism. Like, I can see the power of possibility. I am always relentlessly, annoyingly, obnoxiously looking at what could happen, like in a good way. Here's what's possible, right? I'm very naturally wired to have a vision and an idea and a clear outlook on what's imaginable. And unfortunately for me, and sometimes for those around me, I am not always very realistic. I've learned over the years to root my idealism more in reality, mainly because, honestly, it feels better and goes better. It's for sure less devastating and gobsmacking when things don't go in an ideal way. But for me, it's very much an intellectual knowing and understanding. Like, it's not at all organic to me to be like, wait, let me put this through the filter of reality and see what's what. I have to remember to do that part. But it's not sheer optimism or hope that I hold on to at all. I don't always think things are going to work out, or I don't always look on the bright side. It's not that. It is definitely a clear vision of what's possible. And I say all of this so that you understand a little bit about me and of course then where this is coming from. And I say all of this because I also recognize in myself a very dicey relationship with hope. So because of that precarious dynamic, I have sought out thoughts and teachings and quotes on hope literally for years. My idealism, it goes back to some of my very earliest memories, and so does my balance, or my imbalance, I suppose, with being hopeful. So this wasn't new research or new territory for me. This is something that, again, I personally have felt intrinsically for my entire life. Now, like I said, there's some very interesting things that have been written about hope. Like, of course, we have to start with Emily Dickinson's line about hope, which goes like this: "Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all." Pablo Neruda wrote this: "You can cut all the flowers, but you cannot keep spring from coming." The novelist Barbara Kingsolver, she said it like this. This was in her book, Animal Dreams. "The very least you can do in your life is figure out what you hope for. And the most you can do is live inside that hope. Not admire it from a distance, but live right in it, under its roof." So, yeah, I kind of like it, right? I like it from afar anyway. It sounds good. I'll be honest, it's a bit like a Monet painting to me. Like, from way over here, it looks pretty good. But when I get up close to hope, when I start to really try it on and feel it, it's almost like it just goes all blurry. It slips through my fingers. I can't quite get there. Maybe I'm a little too skeptical. Maybe I'm a little too dark. Maybe I have my nose pressed up against a painting that I definitely shouldn't be touching. And maybe I'm just complaining I can't see it properly. I don't know. But hope, when I get right up close to it, it gets really fuzzy to me. Adrienne Martin, she's a moral philosopher and the author of the book How We Hope. And she defines hope this way. She wrote, "A desire for an outcome and the belief that that outcome is possible but not certain." Okay, so one more time with that. Hope is a desire for an outcome and the belief that the outcome is possible but not certain. All right. Emily Nagoski, who wrote the fantastic books Come As You Are and Burnout, she paraphrased that definition this way. She says, "Got that? Hope is justifying your feelings, thoughts, and plans based on your assessment that a desired outcome is possible." And yeah, there's a line of thinking where hope is the thing that keeps us going. Like, if you think something's going to work, if you have an idea that a desired outcome is possible, then you'll at least try, right? Another way of saying that is without the hope, we don't try at all. That maybe hope is what motivates us to take action. It's the reason we do things that have even a scant chance of success. It's the reason we buy lottery tickets and undergo potentially, but not guaranteed to be, life-saving surgeries. It's the reason we throw our hat in a ring of promotions or nominations or what have you. Hope is the spark that fuels us to try for things that only seem possible, not guaranteed. But if you think about it, we almost have no right to hope. You know? It's like we're reading a crystal ball. We're trying to assess a future outcome, and then we're basing our thoughts, feelings, and actions on that idea. That future thing that we can't possibly know from here. You see where it gets dicey? Right? There's just like no real logical reason to hope. Okay, so Emily Nagoski, who is so real, she is such a great writer and like kind of dark, but in the good way. She said this, she posted a video, this whole kind of thought process, essay, monologue on hope. And she said this in her video. The reason hope matters, by this definition, is that a lot of people would use their assessment that something is unlikely as a justification to do nothing. No hope, so no action. And that's why most people cling really hard to hope. They feel like abandoning hope is abandoning all reason to keep trying. And that's what broke for me. I had a series of life experiences that broke the link between my assessment of whether or not a desired outcome is possible and whether or not I think, feel, or plan anything about that desired outcome. I lost my ability to justify my thoughts, feelings, and plans based on what I thought was possible. Okay, I just want to pause here because I hear about this from some of you. And I'll be honest, I have felt this personally in some way, shape, or form over the past couple of years. That I lost my ability to justify my thoughts, feelings, and plans based on what I thought was possible. And for me, a natural born idealist, this is painful. This is when the bottom falls out. Because it's not optimism, but I thrive on a sense of what could happen. Usually that whole 1 chance in 1,000, those kinds of odds, I'll take them every time. It's how I get excited and motivated and energized around something. It's possible. Look how we can make this good. And when that base, when that ground, when that shakes and starts feeling tenuous, oof, that's where things get real dicey. For me, anyway. Okay, Nagoski goes on to talk about unimaginable hope and faith. So she's an atheist, so faith is a real tricky one for her. But I like how she approaches it. Okay, so a few more words from her just because it's so good and totally relevant here. She said this: hope is a sustaining energy. It keeps us working through trials when we're being challenged, but it is contingent on that assessment of the probability of that desired outcome. But there is a non-contingent sustaining energy, which cannot be interfered with by any assessment, no matter how dire, of the probability of a desired outcome. That non-contingent sustaining energy is an unimaginable hope. What's it called when you have no reason to believe a wanted future may come to pass, and yet you continue to work toward it just as if you did believe you could make a difference? What's the name for that emotion when you walk toward the world you want, knowing that each step might be off a cliff? Okay, so back to Adrienne Martin, the author and philosopher who wrote How We Hope. She calls this faith. Unimaginable hope and faith. All right. I know, this is a lot, right? Take a breath. There's one more angle to consider here. You ready? This is from Pema Chodron. Now, The Buddhists have a pretty bleak view of hope. That should be said at the outset. But here's what she wrote in her book, When Things Fall Apart, which, this is worth reading and rereading and rereading when things do, in fact, fall apart, personally or professionally or collectively or what have you. I have read this book more than a few times. She wrote this: hope and fear come from feeling that we lack something. They come from a sense of poverty. We can't simply relax with ourselves. We hold on to hope, and hope robs us of the present moment. We feel that someone else knows what's going on, but that there's something missing in us, and therefore something is lacking in our world. All right, there's a lot in there, but for now I want to hone in on the part where she says, hope robs us of the present moment. Such a Buddhist thing to say, that the very idea of hope, of hoping for something, is an implication that the here and now isn't good enough. That if we're hoping, we have an idea that the next thing or a future time will deliver something better. And so we should hold out for that instead of being here in this moment. You following me? Like hope and being present are mutually exclusive, according to this line of thinking. So you can be hopeful or present, but not both. Okay. So there's a lot out there about how good hope is. This is almost not worth talking about because it's so ingrained in us, right? How we need hope, how hope is the emotion or the experience or the approach that keeps us going, that keeps us engaged, that keeps us wanting and showing up and striving. All right. Then we have the question about what hope is. And that suggestion, the definition, right? That hope is a desire for an outcome and the belief that the outcome is possible but not certain. And the philosophy that idea, that an outcome is possible even in the face of complete uncertainty, is kind of shaky, right? That some of us have been so busted up by life that hope becomes near impossible. So then we lean towards unimaginable hope or faith instead of simply trying to hope. And then we have the Buddhists, namely Pema in this example, suggesting that hope is mutually exclusive with presence. And if we want to be here and embodied and present at all, we just have to give up on hope altogether. Are you good? Are you still with me? This is kind of a lot, right? Welcome back. Did you miss me? All right, so what do we do with this? As we close out this year, as we look to a new year, as we continue through the age of COVID and war and social injustice, and we embark on a new president, and time keeps passing, and our children keep getting older, and we too, right? Our lives keep unfolding with no pause, no time out, no pit stops so we can get our act together or that we can be ready or that we can have it all figured out in a different way so that we can move forward, finally, as our best, most adult and totally put together selves. Like it's all just happening whether we're fully ready and prepared and whether we think we know what we're doing or not. More holidays, more travel, more get-togethers, and or more acute moments of existential crisis and questions and being absolutely and rudely confronted by the consequences of being ourselves. Spoiler alert, I don't think we're going to come up with any answers today. I just want to say that. We are just looking at hope together. We're kind of going, together. We're wondering about hope together. Yeah? So I also want to talk here about expectations versus hope, because I think in our minds, these two can get collapsed, and I want to separate them out into their own parts so that we can understand both hope and expectations a bit better. And maybe, I don't know, two, maybe, through that lens and through that line of inquiry, we land in a different spot with both of these experiences. So let's close today with this, right? Because again, no real answers. These are just some questions. These are just some things I've noticed that I'm feeling and things that I've noticed that I'm not alone in feeling. Things that I suspect many of us are feeling. This shaky dynamic with hope. A want to hope, but also feeling a little broken around hope. So, what are expectations? How do those fit in with and around hope? Okay, I know, one more time, but remember our working definition of hope, which is a desire for an outcome and the belief that the outcome is possible but not certain. Okay? Now, how about this? Try this on. Here's the dictionary definition of expectation. A strong belief that something will happen or will be the case in the future. Okay, see why we need to talk about these together? There's a desire for an outcome, that's a hope, but the belief that it's only possible, not guaranteed. And an expectation is that something is basically gonna happen. Sometimes people talk about having low expectations in life as a way to protect themselves from disappointment. And when you look at this on paper and somewhat analytically, it kind of makes sense, right? Low expectations, like according to the definition, are basically a way of saying, I do not have a strong belief that this thing will happen or that it will be the case in the future. We're willing to say, yeah, I see that, and I don't presume it's going to happen. It's like seeing the possibility without getting emotionally entangled in the outcome, which I think would be the hope part. Looking at the so-called good outcome as just one of many outcomes. We don't know what's going to happen here. So low expectations. Is setting low expectations the key to not feeling disappointed when things don't work out? Does that shield us from being bummed out, let down, sad? I don't think it's the answer, but I can see at least sometimes how it's an answer, how that would work. Sure. Can we hope for something and have low expectations? Does having high expectations demand a certain amount of hope? Again, no answers here, but I think words matter. I think our thoughts matter. I think how we approach things in our minds and our hearts matters. So when we have something coming up or a situation on our hands that we're sifting through, hope and expectations matter. And your own dynamic with hope, your own relationship to expectations, that matters. Because if things inside of you feel less than strong or less than resilient at the moment, and you find yourself hoping, or you find yourself falling into or grasping for high expectations, well, that's something that you want to be intentional about. Again, in my experience, in the past few years, hope and expectations can be a trapdoor to a seemingly bottomless black hole if we aren't aware of what we're up to, if we aren't intentional. All right, how to wrap up all this fun at this point, right? I feel like we're just getting started here on some philosophical existential exploration that we could talk about this for a while, you and me. And like I promised, no answers. This is literally just an exploration, some questions, food for thought. And I like that better anyway, because I'm not here to be prescriptive. The truth is, no one knows what this needs to look like for you except you. And same for me. I'm the only one who can figure this out for me. So I'm not ever looking to dole out advice or be suggesting silly things like, this is the way, do it this way with any of this stuff. No. Take it in, see how it lands for you, and then go forth in your own way with your own ideas and wants and needs. Yeah? Yeah. That's the only way. Your way is the only way. That I can tell you. So listen, let's keep getting together here. Most Wednesdays. How about that for a promise? And we'll just keep exploring together. Deal? All right. That's it for today. I will see you next week at the same time, same place for more transforming anxiety. And until then, please take care. Thank you so much for being here, for listening, for doing this work alongside me. Thank you for sharing this with your friends and your family, anyone who, could use the support and the guidance, who could use these teachings and practices. Thank you for sharing your stories with me, telling me about your experiences and asking your questions. I'm here with you. Let's do this together. Transforming anxiety.